Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you guys are interested to see me go over a load workup with velocity data, case volume comparison of 6.5 Creedmoor brass by Hornady, Lapua, and Norma, stick around. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is the follow-up to the first 6.5 Creedmoor brass comparison video that I did. My initial intention when I started to make this video was simply to do a load workup with IMR 4350 and the Nosler 140 grain RDF and show you how the data compared in all three brass cases. But as you can guess by looking at the bench, you can probably see that as I went along, things got more complicated. And to do this properly, I had to buy a couple more toys, do a lot more work, and try to gather a lot more data so I can make sense of the results. If you guys want to see the load results, the internal case capacity, and some of the other data that I collected along the way with dimensions and everything else, make sure you guys stick around to the whole video. Now, like I said, since this is the second video, guys, if you haven't seen the first, I'll put a card up on the screen. Go back and look at that video first before you watch this one. There's a lot of information in that, a lot of comparisons of the actual dimensions of the case, the weights of the cases, and some other information that will be pertinent to this video, so you really should see that video before you watch this one. For those who have seen it, we've got a lot of information we're going to go over today. I'm going to try and keep the video as short and normal as possible. I want to do the best I can to give you guys the whole story if I can. The first thing we did is we loaded 25 pieces of each brand of the brass. We used IMR 4350. If you guys are regular fans of the channel, I already showed the load workup with a Hornady only, mostly because if you guys are familiar with the channel, I usually do load workups. I didn't want anyone to have to dig through this video if they wanted my load workup on just straight up IMR 4350 with an Nosler RDF. Some of that data is going to be a repeat for this video, but I think it's important that we go over it. When I did the initial load development, when I sized all this stuff and gave all the information, everything was initially sized with my Hornady match grade full length sizing die with my 288 bushing, and then everything was ran through my Sinclair mandrel die to give a 1/1000th neck tension consistent in all three brands of cases. In the last video, I gave the initial measurements on all of the brass. I simply chamfered and deburred the cases if they needed it and loaded it at the length that it was. If you guys have seen the last video, you remember the Lapua case already came trimmed to minimum trim length of 1.910, and Norma was a little bit longer. Hornady was kind of a little bit more all over the place. But again, go back to that video and you'll see more information than you ever wanted to know. So the load workup, I'll put the load workup on the screen. Basically, every single brand of brass saw the identical load workup. This information will be a little bit repetitive, but I wanted everyone to see an honest comparison of the load workup if it was done identically in all three brands of brass, so you could see the differences in the comparison. Our initial load was 39.5 grains of IMR 4350. We loaded all the way to 41.5 grains of IMR 4350. The overall length that we picked was 2.775. I received that overall length from Nosler and email a recommendation to load these with the same information as the 140 grain custom comp that they already make. The primers for the Hornady and Norma brass was the Fed 210M primers. The Lapua brass actually has a small rifle primer, so the Fed 205M primers were used. So that was saying, let's get into the load data. At 39.5 grains, estimated velocity would have been 2598 feet per second. Actual velocity in the Hornady brass was 2526. Standard deviation of 21.5. Extreme spread of 55. 1.238 MOA group. At 40 grains, 2631 feet per second was the estimated velocity. Actual velocity achieved was 2574. Standard deviation of 5.8. Extreme spread of 14. 1.463 MOA group. At 40.5 grains, 2665 was the estimated velocity. Actual velocity was 2616. Standard deviation of 13.3. Extreme spread of 33. Group size of 1.163 MOA. 41 grains was 2698 estimated velocity. Actual velocity was 2660. Standard deviation of 8.7. Extreme spread of 19 and 0.689 MOA group. At 41.5 grains, max load, 2731 estimated velocity. Actual velocity achieved was 2709. Standard deviation of 10.2, extreme spread of 23, group size 0.970 MOA. So guys, we'll move right along to the Norma brass. So the Norma brass, obviously, same estimated workups through the whole thing, but we'll go over them again. 39.5 grains, the estimated velocity of 25.98, actual velocity of 25.27, standard deviation of 8.6, extreme spread of 21, group size 1.069 MOA. At 40 grains, the 26.31 estimated velocity, actual velocity was 25.72, standard deviation of 7.2, extreme spread of 16, 1.080 MOA. At 40.5 grains, estimated velocity of 26.65, actual velocity of 26.13, standard deviation of 9.5, extreme spread of 23, 0.422 MOA group. I will ruin everything and tell you that that was the best group everybody shot all together, but there are some more information coming. At 41 grains, 26.98 estimated velocity, actual velocity achieved was 26.54, standard deviation of 14, extreme spread of 34, and 0.956 MOA group. Max charge again was 41.5 grains, estimated velocity of 27.31, actual velocity of 26.98, standard deviation of 8.6, extreme spread of 19, and 0.710 MOA group. Norma brass actually did pretty good. Moving right along, guys, the actual Lapua brass workup, same 39.5 grains at an estimated velocity of 25.98, actual velocity of 25.33, standard deviation of 10, extreme spread of 24, a 1.288 MOA group. At 40 grains, 26.31 was the estimated velocity, actual velocity was 25.76, the standard deviation was 7.2, extreme spread of 20, 0.629 MOA group. 40.5 grains was 26.65 feet per second, actual velocity was 25.98, standard deviation of 11.4, extreme spread of 33, group size 1.087 MOA. At 41 grains, the estimated velocity again was 26.98, actual velocity achieved was 26.26 feet per second, standard deviation of 9.9, extreme spread of 24, 0.937 MOA group. Max load was 41.5 grains, estimated velocity of 27.31, the actual velocity achieved was 26.57, standard deviation of 10, extreme spread of 25, group size 0.913 MOA. So guys, if you haven't figured it out already, what I was really surprised about the most was actually how the velocity differed pretty wildly, in my opinion, from the different brands of cases. I really didn't expect to see the Lapua case velocity drop off so much there at max load. Obviously, Hornady was the highest velocity with the same load. Norma wasn't too far behind it, only 13 feet per second behind it. However, Lapua brass 26.57 feet per second was a good ways off from all of the rest. So a little 52 feet per second on max load away from the Hornady brass. So guys, I'm going to do my best to put this chart on the screen. I hope it's not too much of an eye chart. Show you the actual velocity that was achieved with the different brands of brass as we went along on the chart. Honestly, I was really shocked. Lapua actually started off at the highest velocity, was right on, at 40 grains there. They were pretty much really stacked right on top of each other. And Lapua just coasted right off. Not that there's anything wrong with the brass. I was surprised to see such a significant average velocity change between all the different brass types. I will confess here, guys, I really wish I had quick load. I know some of you guys are quick load nerds out there to see what quick load had to say about this. I said in my first video that I really didn't have any interest in measuring the actual grains of water weight for all these different types of brass, because I really didn't want to go through the effort, because just to be blatantly honest, whenever I was to get a brand new lot of brass, I certainly don't water weigh it and separate it by that. It's just not part of my process. I'm not saying it's wrong to do this, guys. I'm just saying it's not part of my process. Everyone has their own opinion on this. But that being said, I saw such a significant difference in the velocities between the three brands. I had to go through, and after everything was done, I had to do a accurate water weight the best I could to determine what really is the difference here, guys. Is it a case capacity difference between the brands of brass? Is it the fact that the Lapua has such a significantly different heat treatment? I mean, if you do the research on these three different brands of brass, I really think it's across all the brass. All of it becomes annealed, but I'll put a better shot on the screen. I'm guessing that you guys probably can't see the best. That Lapua has a very obvious annealing process that's apparent on the cases when you get them. I kind of kicked myself back and forth a little bit to see how am I going to accomplish this. and be able to give accurate information. And there's probably an easier way. You guys can tell me what I did wrong in the comments below, but this is what I did right, wrong, or indifferent, guys. I bought another die. I really didn't want to have to full-length resize this. The only thing I really wanted to do was push the necks back to a consistent form. I had to leave the primers in, otherwise it was going to leak everywhere. I don't have those magic little plugs that some other people do, and I didn't really intend to buy them. And so I bought another die. What I picked up was this Redding die. This is a Redding neck-only Type S bushing die. If you guys are really interested, the part number is 71446. Of note, if you've watched the first video already, which you should have, I talked about my Redding decapping die. Now, if you guys didn't want to buy a straight decapping die, which I still recommend, part of my process before I do anything typically is decapping all of the brass just to keep my dies clean. However, I will tell you, if you guys are bolt action only and you're going to have a pristine chamber and you want to only neck size this, which is absolutely your right to do so, you can pick up this die, and the pin that comes with this die, it does fit in that small primer pocket specialty hole that Lapua puts in these. If you guys didn't want to have to buy that special die, you can decap with this die, and the pin that comes with it will work. So I wanted to throw that in at some point in time in the video. I bought this bushing die. So I took all these, I wet tumbled everything, got it as clean as I could, dried it all out a lot, and then I only neck lubed the cases, and I only neck sized all the cases exactly the same. So everything should be fire formed to my chamber. The only thing that's been done to these has been neck sizing. And guys, too, after I did all the resizing, I used my Sinclair die one more time to make sure the inside neck diameters of all the cases were consistent. So I didn't want the outside neck diameter when they were pushed back with the neck sizing die to be inconsistent with any possible brass thickness differences between the cases, and so I opened them all back up so the interior dimensions should be the same as what I would have loaded them to. As consistent as possible, obviously, we were going to have to trim the cases. Instead, I was really tempted just to throw these on and start getting these things trimmed, but before I could trim these, I wanted to take the measurements to actually see how much these cases had grown. I'll put up the information from the last video that I did just to remind you. Before these were shot, the Hornady, the actual length of the case was anywhere from 1.9125 to 1.9165. The Lapua was 1.909 to 1.9105. The Norma cases were 1.9145 to 1.9165. And guys, after we fired these, I took this measurement, and so the actual case overall length of the Lapua cases, firing the same identical loads, the Lapua cases, the entire lot before trimming, was 1.9085 to 1.9115. So guys, basically the Lapua lot stayed almost identical in length. It might have grown 1/1000th, but one of the measurements I got was actually a 0.5 shorter, so I'm not going to try and explain that. I'm sure a 0.5 was within my tolerance of measurement, but I was significantly surprised Lapua cases basically didn't grow. That was not the case for the other two cases. So again, like I said, the Hornady was from 1.9125 to 1.9165. The Hornady cases actually ended up being, the smallest case was 1.9175 all the way to 1.922 overall length. And again, with the Norma lot, these started off at 1.9145 to 1.9165 and ended up, the overall length was 1.985 was the shortest, all the way to 1.9220. So basically, guys, I just thought that was an interesting data point to see how significantly with the same load that these shot through, that the Lapua cases basically didn't grow. The Hornadys grew quite a bit. The Normas grew quite a bit as well. Certainly not an oddity that you have to trim brass, but I certainly didn't feel like I needed to trim all these Lapua cases, seeing as some of them were still even 1/1000th under the minimum trim length. Minimum trim length obviously being 1.910 for the 6.5 Creedmoor. So that being said, and all those measurements taken, we set out to trim these. Guys, I do have a Lee cutter and lock stud for the 6.5 Creedmoor. However, with this pin, it does not work with the Lapua brass. For the Lapua cases, I was going to have to use something like the Lyman or Choose Your Own Adventure, guys. whatever you guys like to trim brass with. But since I wasn't knocking any of the primers out, I couldn't use that tool anyway. For this testing, I didn't trim the Lapua cases at all because none of them required trimming again. I did my best to set the length, and we trimmed the Norma and Hornady cases all the way down to the approximate 1.910 dimension that we were trying for. To make this more difficult to read and give you more information than you ever wanted to know, I'm going to put the charts on the screen so you guys can pause it, stare at it to your heart's content, and you can see all the dimensions. I was taking the case volume measurements with just a standard 10cc syringe and weighing the cases on my Hornady scale. I will fully admit that there is some error involved in this. The smallest strip you can possibly put in there is somewhere around 1/2 of a grain, though obviously you don't have to put a whole drop in at a time. Water tension does amazing things. So guys, I did try and be as consistent as I possibly could at taking these measurements. I'm sure there is error involved in these, but it should give you guys at least a reasonable idea of the actual case volumes in grains of water for the 3 different brands of brass. I'm not going to read off every single data point in here. You guys can see the charts. I'm sure they've been on the screen since I've been talking and are probably still on the screen now. But the information you need to walk away with is the average case volume of Lapua cases was somewhere around 52.4 grains of water. Hornady was about 53.7 grains of water, and somewhere in the middle, Norma was about 52.93 grains of water. I also include on the bottom of that list the standard deviation between the measurements. Hornady was actually 0.158, Norma was 0.221, and Lapua was 0.117. There's certainly some error in this measurement. I just wanted to give you guys a general idea. I do feel overall the Lapua cases were the most consistent across the board. There was some variation in the trim lengths that I measured after I trimmed. It's just an impossibility to get these things exactly to the 1,000th. I'm sure that's had a slight effect on it. And again, staring at 75 cases, I'm trying to measure the water on these to get accurate information is not a perfect science. So I've got all the data on there. Stare to your heart's content. Tell me what you guys think about in the comments below. Please don't feel like you have to give this a thumbs down and leave. If you guys have some criticism, I'm more than willing to listen to it. Leave in the comments below. This is the first time I've went through a whole bunch of water weight analysis on any of the cases that I've ever had. And as long as it took and as hard as it was, I truly hope it's the last that I ever do. But again, guys, teaching to their own. I understand that this is something you guys take seriously, and everybody's learning process is different. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm not interested in doing it every single time I fire these cases. And if you guys do perform this, I really want to... Are you guys tumbling these in separate lots? I just can't imagine how I could ever get anything processed in a reasonable amount of time if I was to try and keep every single variation segregated from one another, and I'd have to buy 4 times the amount of brass that I would actually need to fire just to get a lot that was usable and consistent, regardless basically of what brand I was using. I really put this information out here, guys, so you can just get a general idea. If you guys are like me, you're going to pick a lot and you're going to load it. What's going to be the best bang for your buck? What's going to get you the most consistency, the most lifespan, and give you guys the best overall experience bang for your buck? So I show you guys the brass like I always do. You guys can see really no pressure signs all the way around. I'm sure that this load could have been pushed hotter. Another video I saw, guys, the 6.5 guys did a comparison of another type of brass, and they were showing a significantly different charge versus velocity in their case. So obviously the internal case volume had affected their load workup as well. That's one of the reasons why I did do the water measurement, to really understand what that was and how that was changing. And again, I'm really interested. If one of you guys has quick load, if you want to run the numbers on that case volume and what we were seeing, does that really make sense? Is it the internal case volume, or I really wonder, is it a combination that there's just a better annealing process done on the Lapua brass? If you guys have seen my die review that I did comparing my 3 different die sets, and I basically showed that the neck tension in that video did significantly affect the velocities of the groups that we shot. Is that what's going on here? I really want to hear your guys' input. I will lead you guys on a little bit. I do have another load work I've been working on. I only have the 25 pieces of Norma brass, and so I have some 123 grain Sierra Match King load work up that I'm going to do in both the Hornady and Lapua brass from these lots, and I'll probably do a video number 3 in this series and I probably will put a fork in at that point in time and call it done, unless there's some more information that I can give you guys that I feel is valuable. I did get some comments in the last video. People were interested in the internal case volume of and what we saw, but I really wanted to give you guys an idea of the consistency that we had of the brass, the internal case volume, the velocity difference, how the load workup. What I'd really take out of this video, I will say it was pretty windy when I shot this. I'm really not trying to make excuses. The group sizes are probably a little bit subjective. I'm sure that the standard deviation and extreme spread numbers should not have been affected by the wind, obviously. Comparing the Norma and Lapua, the standard deviations were all basically 10 or under, or around that number. Obviously, the Norma had 114 in the standard deviation, and the highest on the Lapua was 11.4. But across the board, everything was about 10 or under. Hornady didn't work quite so well, but it did have some respectable numbers, and actually it had the best standard deviation, but of course the worst group size for that. I really don't think you can go wrong with buying the Lapua brass, and honestly guys, that's why I bought 300 pieces. The information that I'm going to take out of this data is I'm getting a very consistent load workup with the Lapua cases, and I feel that is going to be my future as far as reloading 6.5 Creedmoor. Though obviously I have Hornady brass and I'm going to shoot it till it won't anymore. I'm going to get a longer lifespan out of the Lapua cases. Don't listen to everything that I think. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Where do you guys think that I'm right? Where do you guys think that I'm wrong? I'm really interested to hear what you guys have. If you guys have your own experiences to share with any comparisons you guys have done, I'm really interested to hear that in the comments below. You guys draw your own conclusions. You guys spend your dollars where you guys will spend your dollars at. The only one other thing I wanted to mention about this bullet, I did measure the two lands distance. This is 2.898. So basically, we're just going to call this about 120 thousandths jump to the lands, guys. So pretty significant. Though I will say, Nosler does say that this is a very jump tolerant projectile. So we are certainly putting that to the test. And honestly, guys, pretty reasonable groups. I don't, under an MOA, it's good standard deviations pretty much across the board, fairly low extreme spreads. Yeah, especially for the wind that we had today, I'm really not depressed with the group sizes that we had at all. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there for today. I do appreciate you guys who have stuck around to the end of the video. If you guys are new to the channel, think about subscribing to the channel. You're going to see more goofy stuff like this. I'm always looking for another interesting idea. If there's information out there about 6.5 Creedmoor that you guys can't find and I don't know, you might just find it on this channel. So think about subscribing. Thank you to all the new subscribers. As we're recording this video, I actually hit 400 subscribers today. That number keeps going up. Seems to be a lot of good people coming, good commenters down in the comment section. I always learn from you guys, and I appreciate all those comments. Always more stuff coming to the channel, guys. Like I said, the 123 grain Sierra Match King is coming down the pike. I had great luck with the 142s. Very interested to see when I did the weight sorting on those 123s. There was almost no difference in the weight in those projectiles, so I really have high hopes for those loads. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you guys for sticking out to the end of the whole video. I hope to see you guys next week in my next video. Stay safe in small groups to everyone.